Now let's talk about actual authority. We've got actual authority, apparent authority, express, all those different things. We're dealing with actual authority here. Now, agency law, this is going to be nothing new, but it involves the relationship between a principal and an agent, where the agent is authorized to act on behalf of the principal. Now, actual authority and apparent authority, these are two types of authority that may be granted to an agent, and we want to make sure we know the difference, the examples of them, understand the implications. Now, if there is actual authority, this is the power and right granted to the agent by the principal, either explicitly or implicitly, to act on the principal's behalf. Now, again, the difference there, explicitly stated or implicitly implied. Express authority, this is granted to the agent through a written or oral agreement. It outlines the specific tasks and duties the agent is authorized to perform. Now, this is inferred from the agent's position or based on actions necessary to carry out their express authority. So the difference is there. I'm just going to keep giving lots of examples as we run through the course. Express authority, you work for an employer at an accountant firm, and they say, go complete this work paper. That's express, right? But implied authority, generally, you're probably going to need Excel to use that. So it's implied that you're going to start using the company's Excel, their Microsoft subscription to do so. I mean, there are plenty of examples. You can run through. There's so many examples of express versus implied. Termination of actual authority. Now, this is going to terminate if the agent quits or is fired. Actual authority terminates when the agent resigns or is terminated by the principal. Notice is generally required. If you are a client-facing accountant and you work for an accounting firm, the accounting firm will generally, to cover their own butts and just it's good practice, they are going to let all the clients know, hey, this person is no longer with us, because while they're out of malicious intent or for any other reason, you as the former employee could pretend to still work for them and say, hey, I'll get that work paper to you, just send me over your bank statement. So obviously that would be a problem. You don't no longer work for the accounting firm and you're still in contact with their client, that could definitely result in a lot of problems. Also, other ways, accomplishment of objective or expiration of time. Let's say you're hired to work for someone for a year. Well, it's for a year. It's just the time expired, or maybe it's you're hired by someone to build a treehouse. I don't know why a treehouse. I'm thinking of my childhood, I guess. That would be the termination of the relationship. Hey, you're hired to do this one project. The project's done. Goodbye. Have a good life. Maybe there'll be another project for you in the future. Actual authority ends when the agent achieves the specific objective or when the agreed upon time period expires. Notice is generally required. Again, for agency law, notice will be required all around. And that is so that any third parties definitely understand, hey, we should not be working with this person anymore. That has expired. Now, automatic termination notice is not required. There are certain events that can lead to the automatic termination of actual authority. These include death of either party. Once this happens, notice, again, is not required to these third parties. It's just whatever happens after that is not valid. So if I'm an agent and the principal dies, and maybe I know it or I don't know it, doesn't matter, and I go and enter into a contract on the principal's behalf, well, the principal's dead. So there's nothing, that's an automatic termination of the relationship. There's no contract valid at that point. Incapacity of the principal, there's a lot of things that can make you incapacitated, a coma, or just many different things. Discharge and bankruptcy of the principal. Failure of the agent to acquire necessary licenses. If you never had a license to do something, it was never valid. Destruction of the subject matter and subsequent illegality. All of these situations could definitely make for something where this is not valid. Automatic termination. Apparent authority, kind of gave an example before, but we're going to dive through a little bit this more. You've got power but not right. Apparent authority is when the agent has the power to bind the principal based on a third party's belief, but does not have the actual right to do so. Now, apparent authority arises when a third party reasonably believes that the agent has power to act on behalf of the principal, usually due to the principal's actions or statements. That is, again, just a different situation to make sure you're familiar with. Termination here, if the agent quits or gets fired, to terminate apparent authority, the principal must give notice to the third party that the agent no longer has the authority to act on the principal's behalf. Diving more into apparent authority. Now, when a principal terminates an agent, it's essential to notify all relevant parties. Again, just in no matter what, I would say correct answer on the exam, you want to terminate all parties to ensure that the agent no longer has the authority to act on the principal's behalf. If the principal fails to provide proper notice, the agent may still have apparent authority. Again, if I hire someone to buy materials from me for my construction business and I fire them, but I don't tell anyone I fired them, this person could enter into contracts on my behalf and I still might be liable for purchasing those materials, but making the principal liable for the agent's actions. Now, the two types of notices that the principal must give, we've got actual notice. This notice should be given to all parties, again, all these third parties with whom the agent has directly dealt with. This is to ensure that these parties are aware that the agent no longer represents the principal. Super important so that you as the principal don't get slammed on the hook for something you really didn't want to be for. Now, constructive notice. This notice is for all other parties who might not have dealt with the agent directly but could potentially interact with the agent in the future. This notice can be given through public announcements, newspaper ads, or communication channels that can effectively reach the intended audience. Now, a lot of times we're not going to see these situations happen in real life. The best example I can give you that pretty much everyone has the potential to see is the CEO of a company is laid off, fired, gets the boot, something like that. And we as the general populace will probably see that. I mean, you probably would be under a rock if you didn't hear about, let's say, the CEO of Apple or Tesla or Microsoft or something, right? Getting fired. So that would be something to keep in mind. Whereas there will be smaller instances of this. If it's a smaller community, you might have the real estate community of the Long Island area. I mean, it's still a pretty big area, but within that, you might post in Facebook groups and send out emails to everyone and kind of just give general constructive notice that your real estate agent no longer works for your company. Example here, suppose that XYZ Corporation hires John as their sales agent. John has been working with several clients, including client A and B. Later, XYZ decides to terminate the contract and fires him. However, they only inform client A about John's termination, and they fail to give notice to client B and other potential clients. Now, keep in mind, this is textbook how this works. In reality, how the courts may decide what happens in reality, maybe this is something you've dealt with in real life. Forget that. This is how it works here. I mean, if it is how it works exactly in real life, then actually, yeah, sure, harness that and take that and benefit for it on the exam. Now, in this situation, John still has apparent authority to act on XYZ Corporation's behalf when dealing with client B. Now, even though John still has apparent authority here, that doesn't make it right. That doesn't make it that John won't face repercussions in the court, because John knows he should not be doing this. So John still will come under fire, when it comes to legality in the courts and all of that. But that still could put XYZ on the hook. Just keep that in mind, John. But there not really would be questions talking about John being on the firing line with that. And other potential clients who have not received the termination notice, if John enters into a contract with client B after the termination, this XYZ Corporation might still be held liable for the contract because John still had apparent authority facing client B. Now, to avoid all these situations, XYZ should have provided actual notice to all parties that John's dealt with, including client A, B, and constructive notice to all other potential clients. Now, you might think, hey, that's a little awkward to blast out into the public, post everywhere, send emails to everyone. Oh, this person no longer works for us. They were fired. And yeah, that's why I'm saying in reality, in real life, I'm sure this works much differently. Can't say I have experienced this too much in my accounting specific world, but this is for the purpose of the exam. Newspaper articles, TV ads. They take out a TV ad. Yeah, we fired this person, so don't do business with them. Right? You're generally just gonna make it aware. Probably post on some online forum, something like that. That deals with just the business leaders within a specific area. This would effectively revoke John's apparent authority and protect XYZ Corporation from being held liable for any contracts that John might enter into after his termination. Here we've got this slide that breaks out our different types of authority. This is kind of what we went through already, just extra practice, extra examples for it all. Make sure you're familiar with everything you see here. Super important. Actual authority. This is the authority that a principal explicitly grants to an agent or employee. It can be given orally or in writing and is typically documented in an employment contract or power of attorney. Some examples here might be a company's CEO granting a manager the authority to negotiate and sign contracts on behalf of the company. Another example would be a homeowner authorizing a real estate agent to sell their property for a specific price. Apparent authority, on the other hand, this is the authority that a third party reasonably believes an agent or an employee has based on the principal's actions or words. So if I work for an accounting firm and I reach out to the client and say, hey, I'll prepare a cash flow forecast for you, whereas normally I just prepare their financial statements, the client, well, first off, they might say, how much is that going to cost? But they reasonably believe that I have the authority to do that, but maybe I actually don't, because that would generally be within the scope, unless it's explicitly stated, I'm doing accounting work for you. So I can do a cash flow forecast for you in addition to my normal work. But again, if there's something explicitly stated, that supersedes everything. Does not need to be explicitly granted. Some examples here. A restaurant patron believing that a waiter has the authority to offer them a free meal because the manager did not object. So that's another great example here, right? I mean, if I walk into a restaurant and any member of the staff, what's the maitre d or the someone just standing in the front or someone who works there, I believe they'd probably be able to give me a free meal, but maybe they don't have the authority to do so. A bank customer believing that a teller has the authority to waive a fee because the teller has done so in the past. Again, that is apparent authority. Whether it's true or not, it just seems apparent. Now, the main difference here between these two, between express and implicit authority, is that express authority refers to the authority explicitly given by the principal to the agent, while actual authority covers both express and implied authority. So make sure you're understanding that. That's, I'd say, big. I actually went back and added this in because I wanted to make sure it was pretty clear as to the differences here. Make sure you understand that when you're studying. Now, express authority, this is the authority that a principal explicitly grants to an agent or employee. It can be either written or verbal, and it's usually documented in a contract or power of attorney. Examples of express are going to include a company authorizing an employee to sign a contract on its behalf. Pretty straightforward there. And a principal authorizing an agent to sell their property for a specific price. We see similarities. Saw that again up there. We have implicit authority as well. Now, this is the authority that an agent or an employee has by virtue given to their position or role, even if it's not explicitly granted. So again, like you might think that in that example that the restaurant waiter can give you a free meal, just you think, okay, yeah, they might be able to do that, but it may not be true. It's often based on the agent's or employee's past behavior or the expectations of the parties involved. So some examples of implicit authority include a bank teller having the authority to accept deposits and make withdrawals. You would just assume that that's the case. They're the ones sitting behind there taking all the money, right? And then an employee having the authority to make purchases for the company within a certain budget without explicit approval from a supervisor. They're all situations in which you would consider. All right, here's a nice little chart here. I'd say make sure you're familiar with this. Here is an agent principal liability situation. So was there express or implied actual authority? If that's the case, then the principal will be bound into the contract. If not, then go down to the next box. Pretty straightforward. Was there apparent authority? Well, if there was apparent authority, then yeah, the principal will still be bound to that contract. If not, did the principal ratify the contract after the agent entered into it on the principal's behalf and before the third party withdrew? So in that case, let's say the waiter offers a free meal, even though the waiter did not have the authority to do that. But then the principal, meaning the business owner of the restaurant, came in and said, yeah, you can totally give that free meal. Hey, sorry for the bad service. Here's your free meal. If that's the case, then yeah, definitely the principal will be bound. If the principal ratifies it, it makes sense that the principal would be bound for that. And if not, the principal will not be bound. So all of these things have to pass for the principal not to be bound. Now, if it's a disclosed principal, the agent is not liable. And if it's an undisclosed or partially disclosed principal, the agent will be liable. Best example, I'll say it a bunch of times, is just the Walt Disney using a bunch of secret agents. That makes it sound super suspicious, little FBI going on there. But no, that would be Walt Disney using a bunch of agents who were not giving Walt Disney's name, buying a bunch of land in good old Orlando, Florida. So if Walt Disney had actually said, hey, say it's Walt Disney wanting to buy this, people would have jacked up the price because they know Walt Disney wanted to build a park, right? Knew he needed that land. But if it's a bunch of random agents or a bunch of random people buying all the land, then on behalf of Walt Disney, even though Walt Disney is the undisclosed principal, then they're not going to really think, oh, there's something bigger going on here and I can jack up the price. No, they'll probably just sell it at a normal price. That's the classic situation. I would definitely memorize this. This is a great illustration of what we got going on. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.